Welcome everyone back to another episode of the Urban Indigo Podcast. I'm your host, Diana Min, and today I am joined by my good friend and very intelligent woman, Kalin Hardecopf. Thank you, Kalin, for joining us. So excited to have you here. I'm so excited to have Kalin here. Not only is she just an intelligent, beautiful woman and a good friend of mine, but she's also a coach and a psychotherapist, which is like such an incredible combination, I think, to really bring all of the elements together to help someone overcome their obstacles, right? And to help transform their lives. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and just kind of how you got on this path and what made you decide to get into this line of work?
Yeah, so basically right now, I'm a marriage family therapist trainee. I currently provide psychotherapy to adolescents and families at a nonprofit. I'm also a life coach. I help women tap into their authentic self so they're able to basically feel more empowered, in control, and more importantly, at peace, like in all their relationships. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so what led me down this path, I would have to say it would have to be because of my relationship. So basically, when I was 16, I kind of got into a pretty toxic relationship. Yeah, so it lasted about 5 years. It wasn't the healthiest relationship. We were on and off. He cheated on me all the time. I definitely felt very lost and confused. I ended up having to go see a therapist myself. And my mom kind of like forced me to see a therapist. When I went in there, this therapist, she kind of put a lot of blame on me and acted like I was like this bad kid. So instead of, providing that support I desperately needed because I felt very lost and confused, I wasn't able to receive that support. And then, as a teenager, I do have very supportive parents, but as a teenager, we don't really want to share our whole life story about our relationship with our significant other with our parents. So really at that time, and I think I was embarrassed too, so I wasn't really able to tell my friends either, so I really didn't have any support. That basically led me down the path of wanting to be a psychotherapist because I want people to not have to go through basically what I had to go through. I want to be able to provide them with the support and the clarity and provide them, with some direction, how to basically tap into their authentic self so they do feel empowered and taking control over their life.
That's beautiful. And I completely realized that we left the structure over there, so I'm going to go get it and then we'll cut this part out. Wow, that's an incredible journey, and I think it's so honorable that, you experienced something that was really painful for you, and now you've taken steps in your life to now create a space where other people don't have to go through that pain. And I think that that's true for most healers, right? That our life purpose really does end up coming from our biggest wounds, and we want to help alleviate other people of the same struggles that we went through and the challenges that we went through.
Yeah, in my cohort, there's a lot of people, they come from all different backgrounds and all different types of experiences that led them down, the path to being a therapist. So it's really interesting.
When you're seeing these people that you're helping right now, and you're working mostly with children right now, right?
Adolescents, teenagers, and families.
Yeah.
So I do work with parents.
Wow. And so I kind of try to think back to myself at that age, right? And like, I remember when I was 16, 17, and my parents had just gotten a divorce, and I basically dropped out of school. I was doing drugs. I was a complete self-destructive adolescent. And I remember I was seeking a therapist so badly that I was begging to see one, and it was so hard because you needed your parents' consent to be able to see one. And my mom at the time was in complete denial of everything that was going on, even though my dad had just gone to jail and they had just gotten a divorce and there was a lot of stuff going on, and I could not find someone to even listen to what I was going through. And it was like,
it's hard.
It was the toughest part of my life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's so beautiful that you're helping these kids now. Can you just kind of go
And
into what that's like right now?
Yeah, and so with adolescents too, it can be a little bit tricky because I'm working with parents, right? And for a child or adolescent to move forward, the parents have to be very much involved, and a lot of the parents are in denial. They do feel like, hey, just fix my kid, and like just fix them, like you need to fix it. And so and it doesn't work like that, right? It goes back to unconscious patterns. Like everything is passed down from your parents. Like my parents, they got their behavior and all these things from their experience, from their parents. So it can be difficult at times when these parents aren't wanting to acknowledge the things that they're putting on their children and not willing to work towards any significant change for them.
Yeah. So I know this to be true in a lot of the spiritual and energetic work I do. So as a clinical psychologist that's working with not only just the children, but also the parents. So do you see that the patterns of the parents tend to be passed on to their children?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Everything is passed down from, everything is a cycle. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today is these unconscious patterns. How do we break them? It can be difficult at times, especially if we're not aware of what they are and how to break them. So
yeah. I know that I struggled with so much of that in my, early years on my healing journey, and just trying to figure out, like, why was I so angry? Why was I so violent, right? Like, why was I an alcoholic and a drug addict? Why did I have really self-destructive, like, relationship patterns? And, it took me, like a good many years to really get to the bottom of what these answers are. But now that, like, I feel like I've healed myself from that, I can easily see those patterns in other people and help them, guide them through overcoming that stuff. So I just don't, like, when I think about like the clients that I have now as a coach, it's almost like they are reflections of me. And the things that I struggled with and the things that I had to overcome. And in that same way, it's beautiful because I know that I've led myself through that healing, and I can lead other people through that healing, right? And it's just one of those things that is, when you really understand it from a spiritual standpoint, that, like, we are being led through our challenges, right? Our obstacles and all of the stuff that we need to heal, so that we can then pay that healing forward and really be the light for someone who essentially is a reflection of you in your past, right?
Exactly. So basically you either become the parent or the child in your past, and basically we can tend to recreate situations of unfinished business from our past and help resolve them. So for example, for me, I've been in therapy for a while now, and I really didn't understand why I was acting the way I was acting, but I came from a great family. I have very supportive parents. They've been together, 34 years.
Wow.
Although my dad was not the most emotional person. And on top of not being that emotional, I also didn't understand myself. As a teenager, you're essentially finding yourself. When I had these toxic relationships, so now that I think back to it, I was almost attracting guys into my life that were physically there but not emotionally there. So that's kind of my understanding of what led me down that path. And I kind of, we're going to be talking about too how do we overcome these patterns? How do we feel more empowered and know ourselves better, so we feel more in control of our life? Because basically that's what it comes down to, is identifying your patterns and understanding yourself better.
Yeah. I know when I think about it, when like all the like destructive and toxic relationships I was in, it all relates back to the fact that my parents had a terrible relationship with each other. They were fighting all the time. They were constantly violent with each other, constantly violent with us. And so, you know, at the time when you're in less conscious, right, and you're not aware of your patterns and what you're doing, like I was getting into these relationships and having basically repeating the cycle that my parents were doing to each other with me and my current partner. And it's like when I try to think back, like, how did I break myself out of that? Well, I repeated it until it was so painful that I had no choice. That's right,
basically, yeah, that's what it comes down to, when enough is enough, really.
Yeah, and I couldn't. I remember one time I was with my ex, and when we were fighting, I literally felt like I had went into a time warp, and it was like I was my mom and he was my father, like personified by my father, because the argument we were having was this, like, exactly almost to the T the argument that my parents were having. And that's when it hit me. I was like, whoa, like, what is going on here, right? And like, obviously I took a very non-traditional path to my healing, and I did ayahuasca 60 times. I found other types of spiritual modalities between yoga and meditation and other type of shamanic and spiritual journeys to heal myself. But what are things from a psychotherapist standpoint do you feel would be beneficial for someone, let's say, that they have no idea where to start, they're stuck in these toxic patterns, they're stuck in, I don't know, whatever it is, the limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging type patterns, like what is something that someone can start doing today that can help them kind of start to begin to unravel, like what this is?
So basically something to understand is we basically provoke, we project, or we attract the same patterns from our past. So the first thing is you want to be compassionate with yourself, right? Be compassionate. I mean, this, everything is learned. All behavior is learned. So again, like with patterns, first, becoming conscious to your patterns. The only way to understand them is to be fully present. When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're triggered, try to think back, okay, where is this coming from? Who was I with the last time I experienced this? So you can kind of recognize what's going on for you. Where's this pattern? But, it's not an overnight thing. It's practice. Practice becoming conscious to your patterns and trying to control how you react to things, rather just being reactive in a conditioned way.
Yeah, so what do you mean by we either provoke, like the three things that you said? Can you explain those a little bit deeper?
So let's see, provoke. So that means basically if and it doesn't also just stem from just family. So if you were cheated on a bunch of times, maybe the next partner, you might be like, no, you're a cheater, you're essentially provoking it out of them. Or if you grow up with inconsistent mom or dad in and out of your life, you don't trust anyone, you might project that onto them, like, I don't trust, going into things like, I just don't trust anyone. And then attracting it, right? With abuse, I mean, a lot of the time we get comfortable with our norm. So if you grew up abused, you might be more comfortable with that and attract that into your life without even really being aware of it. I mean, we don't do this on purpose. It's all really unconscious. I mean, our subconscious controls 95% of our brain.
So we were talking about this the other day, so I want to just bring that into this conversation because I think it's relevant. I have a friend who is a highly successful journalist in DC, and I've known her for over 10 years, and literally everything she does, she absolutely crushes it. And we used to live together, and we would talk about our childhood, and she told me, she's like, when I was younger, my parents used to tell me every single day that I can do anything, that I was incredible and I could achieve anything I put my mind to. And I was like, wow, that was the exact opposite of my childhood, because I was told the exact opposite. I was told that everything is hard, it's unreachable, I'm dreaming too big, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm retarded, like all those things, right? So then, like, as our life trajectory like went on, like, she continues to crush everything that she does, and it took me a long time. Although I'm super grateful for my journey, and I'm so blessed to be where I am now, you know, with a successful business and really having all of my dreams manifest in front of my eyes now. But it took me a lot to get there. I had to break through my limiting beliefs. I had to reprogram my subconscious mind about money, about my own capabilities. I had to literally reparent myself to build up my self-esteem again, and to really show up and be fearless in shining, right? And stepping out and having confidence in myself. And so, like, I really just want to dive into the patterns that we learn as children, right? Or the behaviors and the things that we pick up as children, and how that manifests for us as adults.
Yeah, so basically there's many things, right? If you were critiqued as a child, you might be the critiquer in your relationship. You might attract, it goes back to provoking and attracting, projecting, or let's see, if you're ashamed a lot when you're a child, you might have more low self-esteem. You might be very critical of yourself. These are all, you know, it comes in a lot of different forms. So
yeah, I notice this a lot too with my clients, is like, they are, when I see them, that they're like overly critical of themselves, or overly critical of others, or overly judgmental of themselves and others. Like, I kind of pick up that I'm like, okay, were you criticized as a child? Like, were you constantly judged as a child? And usually, like, it's not even something that they're aware of. Like, they don't even realize that they were criticized or judged as a child. Like, when I bring it up, they're like, oh, yeah, I guess I was, you know. And it's like, that behavior or that type of treatment becomes normalized in the mind and in the body, right?
Yeah, and to understand too, going back to, you can untrain these, you know, conditioned beliefs, right? These are all picked up. I mean, we didn't just go to the grocery store and pick them up, right? We can unlearn them, and a way to do this is really tapping into what's your beliefs, what are your values, really understanding, because a lot of the time we just carry on, you know, our family's values into our own life. So really sitting down and thinking, what are your values, what do you like about yourself, what are your, you know, I work relationally, so I think about relationships, you know, what are your non-negotiables, what are your emotional needs? All these things are very important.
Yeah. Is it something that you think someone can do on their own, or do you think that it's better to find some help? Because I feel like, as much as I tried to do it on my own, I mean, I did do it on my own, basically, but the most expansive times that I've had, or the most, like, transformation that I've gone through, is usually when I had a coach, a mentor, or someone that was always kind of reflecting back to me my own shit, right? My own limitations, my own limited behaviors, and pulling me forward into believing in myself, or pulling me forward into stepping out of my shell, right? Or getting out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant journey too. I mean, I have a therapist, I have a coach. Like, it's really important because we're constantly evolving, we're constantly creating new patterns. And sometimes we step back and forget what we learned about, and all these things. And a coach, or, you know, a psychotherapist can help pinpoint, hey, you know, what's going on here? It seems like you might be reverting back, and they can help you. I mean, everybody needs that support. It's really hard to, you know, do things on your own sometimes, especially essentially retraining, you know, your patterns, your limiting beliefs, all these things. You kind of need someone to hold you accountable, essentially.
Yeah. A deep program of mine was around money, and it was so deep, that program of, like, scarcity and lack. And, you know, I'm so grateful for my coach that I have. You know, all coaches have coaches, guys, just so you know.
And if they don't, they're not doing their inner work, I would not suggest.
Right. I wouldn't trust a coach that doesn't have a coach, right? But it's like, if it like through the work that I was doing with my coach, like to finally break through, and it was almost like it was like such a thick wall to break through, Kalin, when I really think about it. And I'm just like when I try to think back to where I was in that lack and scarcity and not having enough, like it all came down to feeling like I wasn't enough, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like on an energetic level, when you think about like these limiting beliefs and how we project them out into not only our other relationships, but then we project it out into our life, into our career, into our ability to hold abundance, right? And our ability to step into our purpose, and our ability to just be confident in our gifts. It literally will infiltrate every single aspect of your life if it goes unchecked.
Yeah, for me, a big thing was through my relationship. So first I had a very toxic relationship again for 5 years. The second one was, I think, 1.5 years where he ended up being a drug addict, doing things behind my back. So I just ended up just not trusting myself. I really didn't figure that out till a few years ago after seeing a therapist and stuff, but it really came down to I just didn't trust myself, and I didn't feel in control of my life. So for me, that was a big thing. And, you know, to move past these patterns, it's essentially, especially in marriage and relationships, we have these to heal together, essentially. But if it's someone that's just putting blame on you, you can't really grow that way. And again, have an understanding what your emotional needs are, because whether or not someone is there to support you or not through your healing, if they don't have what they can give you emotionally, it's gonna be really hard for that relationship to last.
Yeah, I feel personally how I was able to overcome it. Like, this is when I wasn't working with a coach or wasn't. I would attract the same type of toxic partner until I took accountability for the fact that I was the one that was attracting those types of partners, because essentially energetically I held that frequency. I held that vibration of the not good enoughness, of the abuse, of the violence, of the toxic relationship. And once I took accountability for that, and I then made the conscious decision to transform that, right? To transform myself and to evolve myself out of those toxic patterns, only then did I attract a partner that was more elevated, that was more evolved, and that was also on the same level of what I was doing and working on for myself, right? Because we attract essentially what we are.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I love that word accountability, because look, if you have two people taking accountability for, trying to stop, disempowering patterns, how much you guys can grow together. Yeah. It's really powerful. And that's what relationships are meant to be, powerful, to grow, to heal. But if that other person is not in that mind frame, it can really deter you from evolving.
Yeah.
And evolving in your relationship too, so.
Yeah. I know personally for me right now, what I'm working on is continuing to take accountability, to heal through my own stuff, right? And to elevate and evolve myself, because I'm trying to attract a partner on that same level.
Yes.
And how would I be able to then hold that frequency, hold that vibration, if it's not already strong within me? So yeah, I know you're out there, boo. I think for me, it really comes down to doing the work, right? Because we can't sit here and be like, okay, I want to reprogram my subconscious patterns, like make it happen, Kalin.
It's constant practice. It's constant.
What do you mean
practice.
You can't heal me? You can't fix me? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's definitely constant practice. I mean, again, subconscious is 95% of what programs you, like. So that might be subliminals that you listen to at night, being an observer of your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your patterns, understanding, how you experience your childhood, how you experience your relationships, all these things. And again, it takes work. It takes support. It takes maybe a coach or a psychotherapist to really, help you and guide you.
Sorry. Okay, so let's say somebody doesn't have a coach, somebody can't afford a therapist, right? And what are practical things that they can do or the audience can do to help to start themselves on the journey of reprogramming?
So basically, for me, I feel like The Secret was like the biggest thing for me.
The Secret was actually life-changing for me too,
feel like
was
it
it?
was life-changing for a lot of people, but essentially, I did a lot of self-work on my own initially.
Yeah.
When you're in your 20s, you're not, for me, I wasn't making like a ton of money to hire a coach and a psychotherapist, so it was really just kind of paying attention to my thoughts. Am I speaking positively? How can I reframe? And that doesn't mean speaking positively all the time, but it's just kind of, how can I reframe this instead of, being hard on myself or thinking that this is the worst outcome? How can I reframe this to, the next best thought so I can, again, raise your vibration and which will essentially change your behavior and your outcome on things. But for me, another thing is just that stuck with me, it still is with me, is control what you can and let go of what you can't, because at the end of the day, you have control over your thoughts. You have control over how you feel. You don't have to react to how everybody reacts to conditions. I basically have trained myself, if I lost my keys or like I locked myself out of my car or things like that, I'm just like, I'm chill, like, because what else am I gonna do? To react in a negative way or be upset, is it really gonna be beneficial? No. And it sounds,
it's definitely easier said than done.
Easier said than done, for sure. Sorry, thank you for.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, because when I think about like when I was on the journey of healing, right? It's like you take 4 steps forward and then you take 5 steps back, right? Because you're just constantly showing up to do the work. And it's like when people really ask me, like, when I moved to San Diego, like, what are you doing over there? I'm like, I'm healing myself. Like, this is a full-time job. So just some things that maybe can help you guys that are listening to this that I actually did was, like you said, The Secret was life-changing for me. Once I realized, I'm like, okay, I have the power to actually create my reality. I started doing vision boards. I started doing affirmations. I started writing down things I was grateful for that had never happened yet. And once I started to really manifest, I was like, oh wait, I can actually have influence on my reality. So that's when you stop getting into victim consciousness, right? And you're like, wait, life is not happening to me. Life is happening through me. So if I am the lens in which life is happening, how do I switch this lens to be something that is more productive, more supportive, and more loving in my life, right? And yes, you still have the triggers that come up. You still have the subconscious programs that come up. But when they come up, it's like you're able to catch them faster, right? Yeah. You're able to turn them around faster. And maybe it'll knock you off the path for a little bit. But I tell all of my clients this, getting knocked off the path is part of the path.
Right. That's how you learn, and that's how you grow, and that's how you get accustomed to thinking a new way. Because without these trial and error, how are you supposed to evolve? You can't evolve when everything's going perfect.
Right. It does take, unfortunately, struggle. It takes challenge. It takes unfortunate events to really bring up these patterns to the surface. And so that's kind of why I say that, like, all tragedy and all unfortunate events are essentially gifts, right? They're opportunities for us to see ourselves clearer, to see where we may be slipping, or see where we can improve on certain areas of our lives, maybe reactions or maybe coping mechanisms, all of those things. Like, I struggled with a lot of that, being from New York and being a very quick reactor, like as far as being violent in my childhood and all that stuff. Like, I've had to work through a lot of that. But like you said, like, having compassion for yourself and realizing that, you know what, I didn't react the way in which I would have liked. However, taking that awareness, being compassionate with yourself, it's okay. I'm doing my best. I'm trying my best. I'm showing up the best I can in this moment. And I know that I will work harder to improve in the future and continue to be better. And so it's not, you know, a one size fits all remedy for this stuff, right? These are deep programs. These are things that have been embedded in your subconscious for your entire lifetime. And so to just show up and bring that awareness, and that's what enlightenment is, right? Like my coach says all the time, enlightenment is bringing light into the darkness, right? And illuminating that space that needs your attention, because you're going to continue to recycle these patterns, recycle these experiences until you heal them.
And I think a big thing is, you know, be compassionate with yourself during this trial and error, you know, evolving. It might be hard, right? So feel into those emotions. These emotions that come up are not bad. So be compassionate, but being aware of how you react. If you're feeling sad, if you're feeling mad, you know, what would help you shift to a different state so you know, feel more joy. If you're feeling sad, if you're mad, what will help you kind of, you know, decrease your anger? You know, if you have a trigger that makes you anger, what will help you kind of, you know, calm down? So these are all things that is worth exploring.
Yeah, something that comes to mind for me that helps me, helps a lot of my clients as well, is just grounding down, right? Like feet on the ground, taking one hand to your heart, one hand to your belly, and taking 6 deep breaths while you're in that fight or flight mode. Like when your adrenaline is pumping, your heart is racing, and like you're super triggered, taking a moment to just ground down and take 6 deep breaths to like calm the nervous system down. And from that calm place, then begin to maybe reiterate some affirmations, maybe put in a new program, right? Like I'm safe, like because most of the triggers is about safety, right? Like am I like people that don't feel safe to speak, don't feel safe to be heard, safe to be seen, all of those things. And so when you get into that fight or flight mode, it's because your body literally does not feel safe. And so bring yourself to a calm place where your mind, you know, when you're in a fight or flight mode, when you're triggered, your mind actually shuts down. And I know you know this, where like you can't intake the same amount of information because you're in a place of survival. And so once you calm the nervous system down, then your brain can intake some new information. Then you can start to talk some sense and some logic into it, because a lot of times when we think about these triggers and these, you know, patterns and these limiting beliefs, they're very nonsensical, right?
The big thing is practice. You know, it's a practice of being uncomfortable when you're evolving and, you know, retraining, pre-programming your brain, and, you know, trying to recognize all these patterns. It might be really uncomfortable. So coping skills is a great thing, you know, like breathing. Is that going to help calm you down, you know, while you're dealing with these uncomfortable emotions? You know, and you can Google different coping skills and try them out to see, you know, again, trial and error, see what works best for you.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Kalin, I am so grateful for you and the wealth of knowledge that you have, that you're going to be sharing with the world, with your clients, with all the people that you're going to impact and help transform their lives. Like, you're such a gift, and
You're such a gift.
And people are going to be so lucky to have you lead them and guide them on their journey of healing, because it's so needed. It's so needed in the world right now.
Definitely.
And you know, the more people, then the way that I like to look at it, it's like the more people that we touch, and the more people that we can impact and help them heal and transform their lives, then they become like a beacon of light in their community, and then it like ripple effects out into their friends and their relationships and their children and their partnerships, right? And then all of those people then receive that healing through, you know,
being your authentic self is healing other people. We need more of it in this world. Like, your greatest strength is just being you, and it can definitely help heal other people by you know, revealing your true self.
Right. And me and Kalin are perfect examples of that. Like, I really think about, you know, 5 years ago when I was in the middle of my dark night of the soul, my transformation, my healing, like, I couldn't even think about stepping out and helping somebody else,
No,
right?
me either.
I was
had no
just like
idea.
trying to, like, people ask me all the time, like, how did you become a coach? I'm like, I really didn't think about it. I just wanted to heal myself.
Yeah, I mean, those are the greatest teachers. We have to heal ourselves before we can serve others.
Absolutely, I agree. And so, tell the people where they can find you on.
So my Instagram is centered.living. And yeah, so you can find me there. That's my Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming
you.
on and sharing your light with us. I hope you guys got a lot out of this episode. I hope that you guys can work to start to really examine where you are in your healing process. If you feel like you need support, please feel free to reach out to either of us. You can find me on Instagram at the Urban Indigo, Kalin's at centered.living. We'd love to support you on this journey. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below.
Yes.
And yes, I love you guys, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.